There we go.
Hi,
Sure.
everyone. Welcome to AMS number 39. I'm Carlos Alcazar, and as always, equally well dressed is my associate, Manyninjas.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. How's it going? We'd wait for a response, but quite frankly, at this point, based on the previous 38, I don't think I'm getting it.
You know they'd respond to you if you dress up.
Well, I did have a suit during the Dirty Harry thing. I still didn't get a damn thing. Very disappointed.
You got to do the suit and the tie.
I hate ties. Maybe that's why.
Indeed. So, get right into it, everybody, because this one's going to be a little bit streamlined just because there's no screenshots to show you. So we'll get straight down to it. The format is simple for everybody who may not have seen an episode. Many Ninjas and I will just basically give our non-spoiler review of what we thought about the movie without giving away half the plot. We'll keep that real short. At the end of that, if you want to check out the movie first, go do so, and then feel free to come back to the video because afterwards we'll talk about some stuff that actually happened in the movie. So what we did this time around, 1986. Let me go do that without the reflection, and I got more reflection. All right, you let me know when I have no reflection. There we go.
There we go.
All right, so 1986, The Delta Force, starring Chuck Norris and Lee Marvin. It sounds like it's Chuck Norris as part of a Delta Force unit of commandos. So why don't I let you start off with this one, Many Ninjas? What did you think about this movie?
All right. Generally, in terms of what the movie is, basically, it's your cheesy 80s action kind of military film. To be honest, I found the film amusing, but it doesn't mean it's a good movie. Generally speaking, we've actually covered a previous film for AMS podcast here, or videocast, or whatever you want to call it here, Missing in Action during one of our earlier recordings, where thematically it feels similar, but I personally feel that Missing in Action was indeed handled better in terms of that, and this is just kind of covering over some of the same material, only not as well executed. And it kind of drags on a bit for what it is. It's entertaining when it's on during the spots that are really good. I use that term loosely, by the way. But generally, it's the movie's got a lot of bang to it, literally explosions, but not much else.
Indeed. For myself, I think this is actually my copy of the movie. So I own a fair number of like cheesy 80s action movies. I know what I'm getting into when I watch one of these films. We covered Missing in Action. We've watched Commando. We've watched Cobra. We've watched a lot of movies that plot-wise aren't much to talk about, but have their entertaining elements. Even The Marine, I was able to find, as bad as The Marine is, I was able to find elements of it that I enjoyed. This one here, the best thing I can say about it is that the front cover is basically the most interesting part. You've got the title, you've got Chuck Norris on a motorcycle with an explosion in the background and the American flag up at the top. This, in a nutshell, summarizes what this movie is trying to sell you on. Chuck Norris on a motorcycle with an explosion in the background, draped in the background of the American flag. It is basically a pro-America propaganda ad masquerading as a movie, which is fine. The 1980s were full of these movies. Here's where I run into a problem. I like Chuck Norris as an action hero. I like cheesy 80s action movies that have really no plot whatsoever. Even the ones where we're just relying on our bad guys are the most cookie cutter villains we can possibly do. We've got terrorists, great. They're going to be really one-dimensional, boring characters that are like, yes, this is what we're doing. And then you have the good guy come and kick all their asses. Perfect, great. This movie is 2 hours long. I almost fell asleep 5 times during this movie. At least almost 5 times. In fact, I feel like what little plot there was, I might have missed it because I almost fell asleep during chunks of this film. There were good action sequences in it, but it felt like I had to wait an interminable amount of time in order to get to them. It felt like torture, which is not really what I want in one of these. If they had cut 35 minutes out of this movie, I probably would rank it a lot better than I am right now. But as a non-spoiler review, I was bored. I really, and I haven't said this for any of the other movies, including The Marine, including a bunch of movies like. I was dying a slow death before this movie finally ended.
Ooh, that's bad.
like, I can't sugarcoat it. I paid for this. I own this. This is mine. But I hadn't had the chance to see it, and I was looking forward to watching it. But I got to tell you, you have about 35 minutes you needed to take off this movie. It was killing me. It was torture. And I don't know if you can hear that in the background.
Yeah, I can hear something. I don't know what it is, but something.
That is the GO train. So yeah. So basically, I can't recommend this movie whatsoever. But if you're a huge Chuck Norris fan, then you know what? Go for it. It does have explosions, Chuck Norris on a motorcycle, and the flag. We will go over a little bit about, how these elements actually came into play, but you have to be a huge Chuck Norris fan to really enjoy this. If you're going to watch a Chuck Norris movie, though, missing in action. Way better. In my opinion. That's what I would say. So why don't we get right into it? So for those of you who are interested in seeing this movie and deciding for yourself, go for it. Now would be the time. We'll give you like a 5-second countdown by the Ninja, and then after that, then we're going to give away plot in the movie. So, Ninja, please count us down.
A 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1.
Indeed. So what I'll do then, let me just read the back of the cover here, because it summarizes the plot pretty well as far as marketing copy goes. Political extremists have taken innocent people hostage, and only super soldiers Chuck Norris and Lee Marvin can rescue them in this astounding mix of fact, fantasy, and heavy-duty adventure. From Variety, co-starring Martin Balsam and Shelley Winters. The Delta Force is over 2 hours of non-stop, I will question that, explosive wall-to-wall action. When a U.S. passenger plane is seized by vicious hijackers and taken to Beirut, the president calls in the Delta Force, a crack team of commandos led by Colonel Nick Alexander, Marvin, and Major Scott McCoy, Norris. Against all odds, the men blast in the compound and, taking no prisoners, rescue the hostages. But the mission is not over yet. A few remaining passengers are being escorted to Tehran, initiating a desperate race against time as Alexander and McCoy try to save them and avenge America's honor before it's too late. Your thoughts?
Generally speaking, most of the film, in terms of its plot, we start off with the initial bit. Basically, we're in the middle of an undescribed area where everyone is trying to evacuate a scene. Some kind of a engagement that occurred that gone terribly wrong. You have all the team trying to go into an escape copter from the original escort copter, something that's clearly been blown up. And of course, you have to be reminded that going the wrong heroic route there. That Norris is the big hero as he pulls out one of his pretty much pulls someone out of a raging fire before the thing completely blows up. Supposedly, his character is supposed to retire that or leave the force because of the mess that they got in, which was by higher-ups. So, lo and behold, we have to basically make a plot device in order to get him back in there. Okay, the whole terrorist plot, which is... It's never really described exactly who these terrorists are, I find. It's just they're vaguely Middle Eastern, basically. So they can fit it anywhere within that general region there, and they kind of do a little more specification when they start bringing up things, we're talking about Tehran and the Ayatollah. They never mention the Ayatollah by name, but the Ayatollah or something like that, in the general region. And of course, as everything gets brought over there, that's when you have to have Norris reinsert himself in the plot as he personally involves himself with the rescue mission along with the rest of the team, which was just already assembled and waiting there in order to go in there. Yeah, I just summarized the whole start of the movie. It's basically that flimsy.
Yeah. The thing is, for me, like I said, I won't try to beat a dead horse on this. I'll keep it short and sweet. A lot of these sections, to get to the action sections, they tried to introduce characters. They tried to convey kind of the political climate. They tried to explain why, in very short, brief bits, they tried to explain why these terrorists were, taking over. But it's really vague stuff. The terrorists are really one-dimensional in the sense that, they've got their cause, they're fighting for their cause, they consider themselves to be freedom fighters, they hammer this home over and over again. And then, these commandos, they give us a backstory to start it off with. Every time you try to give us backstory, every time you try to explain things, it just ends up dragging the movie on. So the thing is, they sell it it's marketing copy, so you know what you're getting there. But they try to sell it as wall-to-wall action. No, I feel like 95% of this movie is not action at all. It's just, we're on a plane. You know, we're talking to the hostages. They're in a truck. They're in the jail. The guys are getting together. They're on standby. They're waiting for the opportunity to do something, but don't have a chance yet. It's a lot of just scene after scene after scene of building towards these action sequences that only last a fraction of the amount of time that it took us to get there. And it just feels like it drags on that way quite a bit. And it is a simplistic plot. There's not really that much there. I'll try to think of something, a point or two that struck me. I have one or two that I'm thinking of, but is there anything that struck you that you would like to address?
Just as a short aside, pretty much, or something based on what you're mentioning there. Yeah, there are a number of seemingly false starts towards the actual start of the real action, for the most part, where it looks like, okay, the Delta Force is about to engage the enemy or engage the terrorists there, but something happens which causes a delay in action, and most of the time a change in venue. In terms of the actual start of the rescue effort and basically setting everything else up under the way. But generally, let's see, things to note. One of the Delta Force members, the one referred to as Bobby, is played by Steve James, who must be just thrilled that he has something to fight for a change, because the last time we saw him, all he was doing was fighting ninjas. That's all he had to do in all the American Ninja series, which he was doing, I think, give or take roughly the same time there. So he must be happy just to fight something new for a change.
Oh, you know what? That's right. I forgot. That's the same guy, wasn't it?
Same one.
Well, didn't they make those movies with Cannon Group as well? Cannon
Yes.
Group made like all these movies. Cannon Group was all over this at the time. They were, if you want your mid to early 80s action, Cannon Group probably made your movie.
Also, the American Ninja series, until it really got to the last two maybe, I would actually say were better films than this.
I think that's fair. Well,
First few, yes. The last ones, hell no.
At the outset, I did spend about a minute basically giving this movie a lambasting that I haven't given to any of these movies we've covered.
Yeah. Let's see, anything else? Number 2, rocket launching motorcycles. That's cool.
Yes, I wanted that. That was one of the things. Like, I was struggling. Even when the movie's terrible, I struggle. I try to find some redeeming quality. And the funny thing is, they cover the motorcycle. He's on the motorcycle on the front cover. So this motorcycle launches rockets. Fantastic. That's kind of cool. And then Chuck Norris does do a lot. Well, the character that Chuck Norris plays quite a bit on the motorcycle in terms of blowing stuff up, doing wheelies all over the place, and then chasing after an airplane to climb on it. So they do get good mileage out of Chuck Norris's character on a motorcycle. The motorcycle does bring up one thing, though, and maybe I can get your thoughts on this as well. Did you have something you wanted to say?
I actually just wanted to put it as small as out there. Technically, they had multiple motorcycles with rocket launchers, and it also had a machine gun of some sort directly in there, by the way.
But I think they were all just the same model motorcycle. He just had more than one as the movie went on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the same. Their motorcycle was a certain type that they were using.
Yeah.
The Delta Force guys have access to the fanciest rocket firing and machine gun firing motorcycle in the world. Our Dredd would be thrilled.
Yeah, that would be up his alley.
Yeah. So that was very cool. That admittedly that was kind of a fun part. I do have one thing though that I want to throw at you, and you can give me your thoughts on this. In one of the scenes, we established that there's one lead terrorist. There's one character in the terrorist that we're focusing on. He's going to be the foil for Chuck Norris by the end. When they get to this point, and if you want to fill in anything, get to it right after, no problem. When Chuck Norris finally confronts him, and they're going to have their climactic battle, of course, Chuck Norris is going to overwhelm him and destroy him, which is basically what happens. Chuck Norris rides into the place he's hiding on his motorcycle, smashes his way in, kicks the crap out of him, punches the crap out of him. He really doesn't stand any kind of a chance against mid-'80s fully wound up Chuck Norris. But after he's kicked the crap out of him and he's got him dead to rights, just because we have to have another explosion, he rides away from him on the motorcycle, leaves him inside a car where he's got a rifle, waits, stares at him for an inordinate amount of time. Again, this is dragging. Like, we're dragging this out as long as we can. He stares at him for an inordinate amount of time to allow him a chance to get the rifle so that he can blow him up anyway with the motorcycle. Like, he could have just killed him with his bare hands as it was. He could have shot him as it was and even blown him up inside the house before even driving his motorcycle in. But he has to do the whole sequence, beat the crap out of him for, minutes, then allow him to then wait. Basically, he might as well have been like this on the motorcycle going, whenever. As soon as he finally gets the rifle, all right, blow you up.
Well, he didn't want to waste the missiles. Actually, no. On the motorcycle he was riding on at the time, I don't think there were any missiles left on the front of the motorcycle. Or that was after the motorcycle switch ready. He didn't want to waste the missiles on the front of the motorcycle, so he wanted the ones that were shooting from behind. So really he wasn't driving away as much as lining up his shot. Why did he take care of him without wasting any of the missiles? Because he just wanted to blow that bastard up. I guess he didn't like his mustache. If it's going to be facial hair, it has to be the full thing, or else he just can't respect it.
Or maybe they desperately wanted an excuse to use the rockets, the rockets from the back of the motorcycle, which is fine. But why didn't you just write it in a way where it would have been like, hey, all of a sudden the guy's got him, and so he used that to beat him. As opposed to, really, he had this thing well in hand the whole time. He was never in any danger. He just waited and then set up this elaborate thing to finally blow him up.
That's because this is not a very good movie.
Like, even Chuck Norris's character was bored. Chuck Norris's character in this movie was bored to the point he had to come up with a scenario in order to make an explosion to try to alleviate his own boredom.
The sad part is, as we're discussing this point, everything else after this is basically a non-issue. The rest of the thing is basically anticlimactic after that point in the movie. I'm not even kidding. Technically, what's left at this point of the film is all the rest of the crew, all the rest of the Delta Force, with the hostages now in tow, the hostages that were hidden elsewhere, are currently on their way to the airfield. They take over the airfield, recover the airplane, which has been sufficiently fueled at this point, at some point. I'm not exactly sure when that occurred. And everyone that's there gets on the plane and makes an escape to friendlier territory. I believe Israel is the place that they eventually land in. But everything else is basically still such a non-event that it's hardly worth discussing. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah. No, we really won't go into it too much more, to be honest. It wouldn't be... I can't try to justify or do anything in the movie. I will say that they did go through the checklist of generic, tropes for a movie like this. So the terrorists are very obviously anti-American. So, death to America, basically. They're cardboard cutouts that really have nothing to do with anything. They're super racist, so they segregate all the Jewish passengers on the plane, presumably to carry them off to, to be killed or whatever. So they have to do that. They go out of their way to make an elaborate scene about this. They have a priest who goes to defend them. So, you have the good guy priest who's going to sacrifice himself with these other ones, for the sake of community. They try to build up this drama. And then you've got the families where you went out of the way. Hey, they're families. Really, we're going to emphasize this because they're trying to garner some sympathy for these people. But predominantly for the most part, to be honest, I think in this movie, other than being threatened a bunch of times and then ending up looking like they're a little bit scuffed up and worse for wear, none of the hostages really get too much in terms of damage. Really, the only one who gets it is one of the American soldiers, who basically is sacrificed, where they're trying to prove their point and they're basically trying to stick it to the Delta Force guys. And that's basically the only person who gets it as a hostage. There's one or two one soldier specifically who dies, and they make a big thing about it. And then they have this scene where, again, we're like filling space, where Chuck Norris and Lee Marvin are like looking at each other glumly as they carry their fallen comrade into the plane to go home. And they do this whole elaborate thing juxtaposed with the families that have been reunited, celebrating together the solemn duty of the Delta Force guy. This is your, you know, we're the unsung heroes moment of this movie. And then the movie still doesn't end. It still continues.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty fair description of that film. It wasn't just those two characters, but although the majority of the remaining Delta Force teams. But basically, your casualties in this film, aside from the terrorists, one of the American soldiers that were pretty much on the passenger for the hijack plane, killed. Greek Orthodox priest, which helps them locate the terrorist head.
Yep.
He's pretty much killed there.
Yep.
Although he plays one of the more significant roles. I found him amusing for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate that he didn't last longer in the film. There's something amusing about that guy. Technically, one of the hostages was injured partially by a grenade and had to be carried off by Steve James' character, Bobby.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Alive. One of the Delta Force members, I can't remember what's his name off the top of my head, or what's the name, freaking hell.
If you can remember any names, you're ahead of me, because honestly, most of these characters are pretty forgettable for me.
Yeah, I believe, well, the name I just happen to have written down here on the side, Pete Peterson is the name I see there.
That's a fantastically generic name.
Yeah. Basically, they call him Pete most of the time for good reason, because it's not a really good name. But yeah, Delta Force, Pete was the last real casualty I can think of.
Woo.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that we really don't have too much to add on this film?
I think we're done with this film.
All right. So, our takeaways: terrorists are bad, go America, motorcycles that can fire with machine guns and rockets are awesome. Yes? Agreed?
Very much so.
Indeed. So saith Chuck Norris. Not their best work. Look, Chuck Norris movies in the 80s are never going to be classics of anything, but this is the bottom rung, unfortunately. I can't defend it. There's nothing I can be done. We'll try to do better next time, but this one isn't going to cut it.
Yeah, when we picked this film together, we remember it being better than what it actually was. I think that was the case.
We went in with high hopes. Ninja.
Yeah. Unfortunately, those hopes were dashed, and then blown up by a rocket launched from a motorcycle. But not as entertaining.
Yeah, it was pretty devastating. No.
It's more like a really big firecracker, really.
Yeah. So let's move on. We won't make this long because let's be merciful. We'll be unlike the movie. We'll be more merciful. I can't recommend it. I just can't. If it comes up on Netflix, stream it. Go for it. But I'm gonna have this in my collection just because I bought it and it's mine. So I'll put it in with the rest of them. But I don't think this one's gonna find its way open again.
Oh, and just obligatory mention: cheap recyclable case with the bits cut out. I hate that shit. I just have to mention that.
Indeed. So why don't we do this? We'll do some shameless plugging, and then we'll actually talk about one or two interesting things just at the end here. Go for it.
All right. In terms of shameless plugging, well, unfortunately, I haven't been able to find any kind of a plugin or anything that will make getting stuff off my Hog usable in an OD. 1 second. Now I can't even remember the name of the program I was going to say. Open Broadcaster Software format. But since I do have XSplit around, I'm doing some testing actually today from the Gaming Edition PVR onto my PC here just for some local recording so I can hypothetically record at least some of the newer stuff. I'm not sure where I'm going to use that, but it's good to know that it works. And basically that's all I need to say about that. And of course, I have Manyninjas.com for more videos and updates. I really do need to update that site to cover some of the stuff I've been doing recently. And at Manyninjas on Twitter, which is a bit more active with me saying things back and forth and including my comings and goings. How about you, Carlos?
Indeed. On the same vein, I've got to update the site. I'm going to try to do that tonight if I can. I'm in professional mode right now. I got back from work, had some dinner, and then we came to record. So I'm going to try to update this tonight. CarlosAlcazar.org for links to all the videos if you want to do that. If you're on YouTube, you can just I keep adding to the playlist, so it's there. At Carlos Alcazar 2 for Twitter to keep updates. I did mention before we were going to record today, so I try to keep updates. Apologies for the delay between this and the Dread video. I was getting situated at the new job, so I'm getting used to kind of a morning schedule. So there's going to be that. In terms of videos, I'm working on one or two things. I did get my hands on. I talked to the Ninja beforehand. I did get my hands on this thing, which I kind of want to do like an unboxing for. I got this guy here. Got my hands on this guy at a video game store in Toronto, and I kind of want to check it out and play some of my old games. I don't have a ton of them, but what I'm thinking I'll probably do is maybe I'll unbox this guy, record that possibly tonight or in a day or two, but then the video will come out a little bit later because what I'd like to do is play some games and maybe talk about how it worked for me. So maybe that'll be exciting, and Manyninjas has some games, so we may try a bunch. This thing plays Genesis, Super Nintendo, NES, and you can actually play, I believe, Super Famicom for those of you with Japanese games.
I might have a handful of games that will that can be used on there. Oh, just give me a moment. I need to consult my spreadsheet. A second. Just letting Excel load.
This makes for riveting television. It really does. Well, riveting news.
All right.
You got something now?
Yep, it says I got games.
That was anticlimactic.
Well, what, you want exact numbers now?
You went through all the trouble of looking it up. It's like, yes, I can confirm I have
would imagine it's like, well, I have, there's over 60 NES games to check out. I have over 43, I have at least 43 Super Nintendo things. I need to make sure that's updated, but I'm pretty sure I have 43 there. But Super Famicom, I got at least 18 games. That one, and Genesis, I have...
Bottom line...
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff.
Bottom line, there's enough. We're not going to record all that, but we will be able to show a couple of highlights. So my plan, my hope, is kind of a thing on the channel. I'll actually be able to, unbox this, and we'll actually have enough games where we can do a little bit of a review and give our thoughts. Manyninjas doesn't have one of these, but he does, he has a bunch of the old systems, but we can do a little comparison and see how it does. See how it performs. Hopefully it'll do well because I love to play some of the old games, but I don't really want to take the space to get 3 or 4 consoles just to play. So hopefully it'll do something. I've heard good things, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's basically one of the cases where it'll be interesting to see how that thing kind of compares to some of the the original versions of the systems for the most part. Because if you don't have like a huge collection, or you don't, basically if you aren't doing something like I am, where you literally need a spreadsheet to keep a track of exactly what you own, and it's just more of a casual thing, then yeah, something like that, kind of a smaller multi-system unit, does make a lot more sense. If you have so many of the things where basically you need to keep track of it, otherwise buying duplicates by accident, then yeah, you're going to have the original consoles around, so it's going to be kind of a non-issue. Either that, or you're, as I'm doing right now, looking for ways to improve the video and audio quality of your systems for not only personal use, but also for recording purposes. Because one of the things I'd like to do is being able to record the output directly from a system rather than doing through emulated means, especially since I own the freaking games. They're right there on the cards there. But I have to find workarounds in order to play it on PC.
Indeed. So we're not going to get too much into game talk. Just so you're aware, I wanted you to be aware of what I was planning on doing. I don't know if there'll be more game videos on this channel or not. A lot of it depends on whether I have time, whether I have the inclination, and whether there's any interest. So if anyone is interested in that, we can certainly do that. I'm not going to, I don't have a million games, but I do have some old favorites that I'll probably look at again, as the opportunity arises. And we'll see how that goes. Either way, though, if worse comes to worse, at least I've got something. Hopefully I can play some of my old games personally, and that'll go in my living room where I can play the odd game here and there as I get to it. So I think that's it for today. Just so everybody's aware, the next video we're going to be doing for the AMS is going to be Machete. So Danny Trejo, lifetime second banana in a ton of these action movies, but this is his movie based off of the trailer that came in the Grindhouse, Planet Terror, Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, Grindhouse, 2-pack. Well, if you ever saw those fake trailers in the middle of it, one of them was popular enough that became Machete. And Machete also got a sequel, so it did reasonably well. So we're going to review that one on the next AMS.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun as always. Like, comment, subscribe, so on and so forth. And we'll be catching you next time as we talk Machete. Possibly all juggling machetes. Except probably not, because that's not very legal. Nor well advised with all this electronics.
I'm holding you to that.
I can't even afford machetes. I can't afford puppets. Where the hell am I going to get all those machetes from?
Now, machetes all fun. Puppets, I'm not so. Puppets, I'm not. Puppets, they're going to have. The people will need to fund it. Machetes now. I can get behind this idea.
Sharp, pointy things, of course. This
Indeed.
makes perfect sense.
Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We will try to do better next time.
Take care.